Hi everybody, it's Wynn, and welcome to another educational video by the Entropy System. As someone who has made a point to assess DID in media, I feel that I would be remiss not to include the latest edition, M. Night Shyamalan's Glass. Acting as a sequel to both Split and Shyamalan's 2000 film Unbreakable, Glass brings all three superpowered main characters together for an alt-superhero action thriller. When Split originally came out in theaters, it did a huge amount of damage to the DID community. Shyamalan's two-dimensional, villainous portrayal of a person with DID acted as validation for more than one unhealthy societal belief. On the one hand, you had people viewing DID as something dangerous or unpredictable. On the other hand, you had people seeing this overblown portrayal and deciding that DID is too bizarre to be something real. Both of these opinions made it harder for people with DID to seek help from friends or professionals about their condition. With that in mind, I went into Glass without a lot of hope, but what I came out with was a very complex opinion about a very complex character presentation. And I'm going to lay those thoughts out to you as clearly as I can. I will be using my standard grading criteria as an outline, but there were so many layers to the mental health aspects of this film that I feel it's important for me to go a little bit deeper in my evaluation than I normally do. Before I get started though, major spoilers for the whole film. You have been warned. Glass picks up 3 weeks after the events of Split, and starts with a cold open on the Horde doing what we know them to do, capturing girls in order to later sacrifice them to the Beast. Luckily, David Dunn, the invulnerable man and protagonist from Unbreakable, is searching for the girls as a vigilante and is able to locate them at a brick factory before any physical harm has been done to them. As the girls escape, Dunn and the Beast have a quick battle, and the Beast is amazed to find that Dunn is just as strong as he is. Sensing the stalemate, Dunn flings the two of them out the window to the street below, where police are waiting for them. It's here that we get the film's first glimpse at an alter who doesn't agree with the ways of the Beast. When the two fall out the window, the police turn on a floodlight, which triggers an alter named Barry to the front and pushes the Beast back. Barry pleads with the officers and tells them that he needs to find a way to keep Kevin, the system's previous long-term host, in the light. Both Dunn and Kevin are taken into custody and brought to a mental asylum where they're put into fortified rooms under the supervision of Dr. Staple, played by American Horror Story's Sarah Paulson. Dunn's room is equipped with a bunch of high-power pressure nozzles that will blast him with water should he become aggressive or try to escape. In Kevin's room is something Dr. Staples calls a hypnotic light, which is essentially a giant strobing floodlight that will force a new alter out if it's deemed that the current alter is behaving aggressively. Also at the hospital is a heavily sedated Elijah Prince, aka Mr. Glass, Dunn's nemesis from Unbreakable. Dr. Staples is a therapist who says she specializes in helping people under the delusion that they are similar to comic book characters and hold some kind of superpower. She claims she can help the three by making them understand that everything they think is the result of a superpower can actually be explained in a mundane way, and that they are normal humans just like everyone else. A good majority of the movie is dedicated to this plot point, so I feel like it's supposed to make the audience tense and question the characters. But if you have seen both Split and Unbreakable, you know that they, without a doubt, absolutely do have superpowers, so the movie fails to elicit any of that reaction from the audience. However, while Kevin's system is in the asylum, we do get to see some interesting character development in his alters. In Split, the alters were mostly portrayed as very two-dimensional. They were either definitely bad and part of the group that supports the Beast, which called themselves the Horde, or they were definitely good and actively fighting the Horde. In Glass, we get the opportunity to see a little bit more complexity in these characters. Patricia, the matriarchal figurehead of the system, is deeply shaken when Dr. Staples suggests that the Beast is not an inhumanly strong being. We see her doubt evolve into consuming fear at the thought that this alter who she believed would finally bring her some semblance of safety is nothing but an illusion. We also see many alters struggling with the idea of whether or not they want to be on the beast's side. On one hand, he promises to protect them, but on the other hand, his methods are violent and dark. Even the beast is shown to have depth, as he explains that all he wants to do is protect Kevin, and he doesn't know any other way. This absolutely does not make the system a group of good guys, but it makes the system sympathetic. Even though the audience doesn't condone their behavior, we still empathize with their fear and their struggle to feel safe in a world that has only brought them pain. And we also get to see some frankly fantastic scenes with the 9-year-old alter Hedwig. I genuinely adored Hedwig in Split, and his presence actually brought a lot of comfort to my system despite everything else. Hedwig was a child alter being portrayed as not a nuisance or an annoyance, but as a complex and competent individual. He was the only alter that was portrayed with any amount of depth, and he was given a lot of screen time. In Glass, now that the system is in an environment where they aren't just captors plotting evil schemes, Hedwig gets to shine even brighter in his representation of child alters. During his first real talk with Dr. Staples, she asks him about his age. When he confirms that yes, he is a 9-year-old, she asks, "You're 9 forever, no matter how many experiences you have?" Later, Mr. Glass has a similar discussion with Hedwig about his age.
"You're 9 forever, right?" "Yeah." "Well, that's incredible. You can see the world the way it really is. Always."
Hedwig says he's so happy that he wants to dance, and Mr. Glass says, "Well then, dance." And the whole movie pauses while we share a moment of happiness with Hedwig as he expresses his joy through some hip-hop moves. Putting aside the fact that Glass is an evil genius and this is almost certainly a moment of emotional manipulation, the scene was so touching. The idea of an adult body behaving in childlike ways is often perceived as something sad or disturbing. This can be seen in most other media portrayals of child alters, and even portrayals of adults with severe autism. It makes the littles in my system worried about how people will react when they come out, and as embarrassing as it is to admit, it makes me concerned that people will think I, as Win, am less competent of a person if they see my littles out and about. The moments in Glass with Hedwig stand as a beautiful contrast to these fears, as Hedwig's childlike nature is celebrated while he is simultaneously shown as a productive and competent member of the system. Unfortunately, not everything in the movie is that lovely. In Glass, we see the return of Casey, the sole survivor of the kidnapped group in Split. When she hears the news that Kevin's system has been taken into custody, she immediately finds the asylum where he's being held and goes to visit him. Dr. Staples is shocked that Casey would actually want to have a conversation with the system, but Casey insists that she believes that the system is inherently good because they ended up letting her go. The way this is presented is that Casey is amazingly understanding with an unending amount of compassion. And not that Casey is making excuses for a very dangerous individual, the same way that many abuse victims make excuses and ask for sympathy for their abusers. When Casey finally gets to talk with Kevin's system, she gently touches their arm, and this triggers Kevin to front. After seeing this, Dr. Staples impresses upon Casey that she is the only one who can heal Kevin, and the only way to combat his lack of loving touch in the past is to offer him loving touch in the present. Don't get me wrong, loving touch is an extremely powerful thing. Scientific studies show that even something as simple as a hug has huge physical and mental benefits. However, this should not be seen as the only way to help a victim of abuse. That's a dangerous idea for a number of reasons. The way the movie insists that this is not an aid, but the only thing that can help Kevin, encourages a very unhealthy codependency. A person should never try to be the sole source of healing for another individual. In the same vein, a person trying to heal should never expect one person to be the thing that heals them. Getting help and having a support circle is very important, but ultimately, at the end of the day, healing is the responsibility of the individual. Trying to be a crutch or use someone as a crutch only leaves both parties drained, hurt, and even more damaged than they were when they started. On top of that, pushing Casey as the one who should take care of Kevin and his system perpetrates another harmful trope that has been in stories for centuries, which is the gentle woman taming the beast. At the end of the film, we find out that Dr. Staples has secretly been a bad guy the whole time and used Casey to bring forward gentler alters so that the body could be shot and killed without the interference of the invulnerable beast. However, it's not framed as her having pushed an unhealthy codependency, but rather that Dr. Staples took advantage of something that would otherwise have been beautiful. Before I get to the last plot point I want to discuss, I want to talk about Casey a little more, because underneath all that unhealthy advice we're given through her character, there are actually a few moments where Casey is a pretty solid DID ally. The first way she does this is by meeting every alter on their level. No matter who's up front, she accepts them and talks to them with respect. Only twice does she request another alter come out, and both of those times were emergency situations when she was trying to keep the system from danger. The second good thing that Casey does is showing compassion towards an aggressive alter. At the climax of the film, Casey approaches the beast and gives him a firm but gentle hug, hoping to stop the violence. The beast is so taken aback by this act of care that even in his immeasurable strength, he cannot bring himself to push her away. Although it is generally not a good idea to surprise a trauma survivor with physical contact, and it is also not advisable to put oneself in danger if they feel like an alter is being overly aggressive towards them, it is true that persecutor protectors often just need a level of love and understanding to help them change their ways. Again, this should never be done in a codependent manner, but the love of a friend or a partner can definitely help aid in changing the destructive behavior of an alter. The third Casey moment I want to highlight comes a few minutes before her embrace with the beast. The beast and Dunn are having their big final showdown in a parking lot, and police show up in riot gear and start to corner the beast. Casey rushes to them and pleads with them, explaining that he has DID, pleading with them to appeal to his more compassionate alters and work together with them to subdue the beast's ways. This is also a pretty solid plan for allies faced with persecutor protectors. Lashing out is counterproductive when dealing with these kinds of alters. It is much more productive to work alongside the rest of the system to help the persecutor protector feel safe and understood. So now that I've discussed the good and the bad with Casey, let's get on to the final plot point I want to discuss, which is the big twist. If you've gotten this far but don't want the twist at the end to be spoiled, go ahead and jump to this time code and we'll go through the grading at the end. The big twist at the end is actually one of 3 big twists, because of course there are 3, Shyamalan has to outdo himself somehow. In the final battle between Beast and Dunn, it's revealed that Mr. Glass was responsible for creating the beast in the first place. In order to explain how, you kind of need to know about the end of Unbreakable, so for those who haven't seen Unbreakable, and those who watched it so long ago that they don't remember the end of Unbreakable, Glass was convinced that because his body was so weak, there had to be an opposite person of him with an invulnerable body. To find a person that fit this bill, he caused dozens of mass transportation accidents with planes and trains and buses, and only happened to, by chance, find Dunn when he crashed the train Dunn was riding on 19 years prior to the events of Glass. During this final battle, Glass explains that he did not randomly choose the train that Dunn happened to be on. He chose it because he somehow knew about Kevin, knew about Kevin's DID, knew that his father was going to be on that train in search for some kind of treatment for his son, and knew that if he eliminated Kevin's father and left him to the mercy of his abusive mother, his DID would progress and the superhuman beast would be made. Of course, they give no explanation of how Glass knew about Kevin or why he chose Kevin as opposed to the hundreds of other children with DID. He just did somehow. As frustrating and convoluted as that forced drama plot point was, it did sort of open the door for a conversation about an often overlooked and under-discussed reality of DID, that there are bad people who purposefully create alters in children. I'm not going to get into all the details of why an abuser would want to manufacture specific alters in a child with DID, but it does happen. Not to everyone with DID, but it happens. And I have never seen this topic discussed in media before. Criminal Minds dives into the idea of creating alters in adults with DID, but to my knowledge, no movie or TV show has ever talked about this being done to a child as a core part of their original trauma. Because in Glass it felt like this topic was really overblown and just present to force drama, I cannot testify as to whether or not this will actually start any kind of educational conversation, but the seed is there. So, now that that's all out there, let's grade. Does the movie portray a proper diagnosis and treatment? The diagnosis is completely correct. They only call the disorder dissociative identity disorder, or DID, and don't throw around multiple personality disorder or multiple personality syndrome, which is not and has never been a medical term like other horror movies so often do. The only treatment that's discussed is using Casey as a tool to fill the void that Kevin's mother left in him, and that definitely misses the mark. Does the movie address why DID is developed? Yes. And I think it did so perfectly. We as the audience understand that Kevin underwent terrible abuse at the hands of his mother. We get some hints as to what that abuse might be during conversation and flashes of memory, but we are never shown any gritty details of his abuse. I really wish more stories about DID would do this. Acknowledging that DID is a trauma-based disorder that can only be developed in childhood is important, but there is absolutely no reason why we as the audience should relive all the details of this trauma with the character. Are alters shown as a unit, or are they extra? In Glass, the alters are shown to be a unit. In Split, there was a definite line between the alters and Kevin, who was sort of this separate, more real being. But in Glass, he is shown to be a part of the group, albeit a more vulnerable member than most of the others. Even as the alters battle over whether or not they should be backing the beast, it is still understood that they are all part of a unit and that they will need to come to some kind of agreement in order to function in a balanced way. And finally, is the character relatable? Sort of? We do get to see a lot of complexity and vulnerability in the alters presented. We see them combat fear, doubt, and morality. Even the beast is shown to be more than a mindless killer and just working with the tools he has to do what he thinks is right. Are they good guys? No. Hell no. Are they still kidnappers, murderers, and a cannibal? Yeah. But we do get to see a level of humanity in them that we didn't see in Split. So, is Glass a good representation of DID? Here's where my complicated opinions come to a head. Overall, my answer is no. But I can't give it a super solid no. If someone came in to watch this movie without having any prior exposure to DID, then yes, the representation in Glass would be damaging and terrible. But since this is a sequel, I can't really look at it as an isolated thing. I have to take it alongside Split. And while as a standalone this is terrible and stigma-filled representation, as a follow-up to Split, it has the potential to undo some of the wrong that Split has already done. If someone had seen Split and decided that people with DID were just evil, seeing the humanization of the system might soften their hardened heart. I suppose the best comparison I can make about this villain is to Killmonger from Black Panther. One could argue on the surface that Killmonger upholds the angry black man stereotype, but Killmonger is sympathetic and has depth. Although he deals with his anger in terrible ways, we understand his struggle. We don't approve of his methods, but we see how his past is full of loss and trauma and manipulation. We see him struggle against poverty and betrayal and the knowledge that Wakanda could have helped him and his community at any time and just chose not to. We still see him as a villain, but there's a level of compassion to why he is hurt and lashing out. In my opinion, the same thing goes for Glass. Kevin and his system still represent a harmful stereotype. They are still filling the mentally ill murderer trope. But when we see the desperation of the system to hold to the hope of protection that the beast provides, and the fearful stubbornness that causes the system to glorify suffering rather than face their own trauma head-on, we know that their actions are unforgivable. But there is a level of compassion for them anyway. It's because of this that I cannot absolutely 100% write Glass off as bad. After all the damage that Split has done, and in spite of all the damage Glass might do, I sincerely believe that there will be people who walk into that theater and gain a newer, kinder perspective about people with DID. But what do you guys think? If you've seen the movie, give me your thoughts. Do you agree or disagree with any of my points? I always love to hear what you guys think. And I'll see you guys later. Until the next video. Bye! Hey everybody, it's Win. I want to give a big thank you shout out to Abby, Liz Joyce, and Shoshi Bauer, and all of our other patrons for supporting this channel and helping us be what we are. If you're interested in becoming a patron, a link to our Patreon is in the description below. If you are interested in sending fan mail of any kind, our P.O. Box address is also in the description below. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and all you in tropical fish have a super great day. Bye! Leia, go. But what I came out with... However, while Kevin's system is in the asylum, we do get to see some interesting cat.